Stop it. Get some help.
In a year where everything changed, when we were forced to question all we thought we knew, when nearly all hope was growing dim.
Hold on to your butts.
Here comes 2017.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
From the country that brought you 2016 and November 8th comes a whole new kind of comedy.
Okay, out of this country, man.
One where anything can happen.
Donald J. Trump will become the 45th president of the United States.
Where the only thing to expect is the unexpected.
You're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream.
Now, our first question, 1 + 1. Yes.
2.
Incorrect. Yes.
Multiculturalism.
Well done, Simon. Next question, what is 3 × 3? Yes?
9.
Wrong. Yes, Penelope.
Gender equality.
Very good, Penelope.
Is this a joke?
You think gender equality is a joke?
No, but isn't this a maths class?
Don't be so racist.
I just asked a question.
We don't ask questions. Questions are offensive.
Yeah.
Now,
I have the right to speak my mind.
No, we have the right not to be offended.
And that's more important. And if you don't stop verbally assaulting us, we will be forced to attack you in self-defense.
Can't do that.
Actually, we have every right to do so.
and it's illegal for you to fight back.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of dipstick who likes to claim free speech while you're shouting people down to shut them up, not only are you a disingenuous, hypocritical dirtbag, that goes without saying, but you have no business calling anyone a bigot. The definition of a bigot is somebody who won't listen to another point of view. That's you. You are the bigot, you bigot.
This is so unbelievable, and I'm ashamed for the Democrats and the press, but then I repeat myself, because when the New York Times has to dig out to the bottom of the birdcage to see what they wrote 8 weeks ago when they were whining about how terrible it was Donald Trump was saying something, and then they turn around and say the same thing. You know what the evidence of a rigged election was? The exposure of the DNC emails that showed that it was rigged against Bernie Sanders and toward Hillary Clinton. It was a fixed deal, and that was one of the things. I think the more amazing thing is that those DNC emails revealed just the contempt that Hillary and her chief lieutenants had for the working class people of America, and that's why she lost. And Democrats need to accept the results of a fair and free election, which is what they lectured Republicans about.
They're happy to ignore things that would help black communities. Better schools, proper law enforcement, also better housing, all kinds of things that build stable families, stable, sustainable communities that are able to get the poorest, smartest kids to Harvard. They won't focus on any of those things. And the reason is that they don't actually care. They don't care about black people. Because if they did, they would act totally differently. If they did, they wouldn't talk about any of the things they talk about, and they would talk about all the things they don't talk about. But it's very obvious from what they advocate for, what they fight for, that they don't care about black people. Well, they don't, yes. Consider... Oh, I see. Oh, it's you. You've taken an awful... Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Can I have my cookies? They're here somewhere. Is this really the best protest you could muster? All 6 of you. You'll notice it took them an enormously long time to pipe up because nothing I was saying was remotely objectionable until I addressed them and said they don't care about black people, exposing them. Until I drew attention to their hypocrisy, they had fuck all to say.
Well, the media have long been influential in the election, generally tipping to the left. They can't stand the fact that Trump goes another direction. Here we are talking about Israel today, and the big reason why we know what Trump thinks about Israel and what he thinks, how he said that things are going to change come January 20th at the UN, is because of his Twitter account. Yet they crusade against his Twitter account because they know it squeezes them out. They've decided that it's a threat, not to the American public, but to them.
We don't have journalists anymore. We have activists within the media that are driving a political narrative that they prescribe to. And they thought it was their responsibility to destroy him in the general election. And now there's no sign that they're going to back off from that failed attempt and by abdicating their own journalistic responsibility.
Well, Dan, if they thought they were going to destroy him, guess what? It didn't work.
Yeah, well, they failed, and it's more the reverse. They need him more than he needs them. He's tweeted close to 200 times since he was elected. I've been keeping the Trump Twitter index, and I can tell you that the number of times he's criticized the media has declined, but the number of times he's making policy statements and statements on what's going on in the world have increased.
Times, and they read a football score from last weekend. 29-20, the Redskins lost. Okay, do they think that's questionable? And they get the movie starts at 7 in the morning. They believe that? Well, at what point? I'll go with you, David. At what point are people being told, dog trained, if you will, not to believe facts?
We're in really scary territory here in a lot of ways. I want to get back to something you asked David before about facts. It's not just that people are now having arguments about what is and isn't a fact. We have Americans who are living in entirely different universes in terms of the facts they're exposed to. We've all so siloed ourselves and segmented ourselves and live in these curated news environments. So I worry, like, when we come out with some of the kinds of important stories that you mentioned before, there will be big stories like that, big investigative scoops during the Trump administration. Will there be an enormous group of Americans who don't even see that, or see it in an entirely different way because they're living in such a particularly curated news environment that's curated to be an echo chamber of their partisan beliefs?
Yeah, it's, what's that called, stovepiping or whatever is the alternative?
Yes, self-selecting.
Yeah, you know, I used to worry, Frank and David, about the fact that news organizations, maybe not the Times, but so many have cut back on their overseas bureaus. And what they do, even the big papers now will rely on stringers. Right. And you can usually tell by the name where that person's probably from that country. Well, when you start relying on that sort of derivative news, well, you don't know whether that guy or woman is really a straight reporter. They could be all kinds of politics going on in their heads. But that's now seeping back into domestic coverage. Because if you begin to suspect the motivation of even a straight AP reporter, UPI, not UPI, AP reporter, Reuters, Agence France, you don't know what facts are.
Now, this is nothing new, because you go back to Jesse Helms, and you remember the days when he ran a campaign against Stan Rather. Yeah. And the right.
Well, I don't actually. That one I forgot.
But the right for long has attacked what they call the mainstream media for being liberal and out of touch and opposed to them. This happened during the Reagan years. Yeah. This has been around for a couple of decades.
Dear members of Congress.
Dear members of Congress.
Dear members of Congress.
Dear members of Congress. I'm mad.
Flabbergasted.
Furious.
Concerned for my children.
I'm worried for everyone.
The majority of Americans, regardless of who they voted for,
did not vote for racism,
for sexism, or for xenophobia. And yet Donald Trump won.
And since he won,
hate crimes are rising.
Women have been attacked in his name.
People of color attacked in his name.
You represent us in Congress.
You are our last line of defense.
So here's what we ask of our elected officials.
No, here's what we demand.
To the extent that Trump pursues racist,
sexist, anti-immigrant,
anti-worker, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, anti-environmental policies,
we demand that you vigorously oppose him.
We demand that you block nominees who threaten the rights of women,
the LGBT community,
people of color, immigrants, and the poor.
And we want you to know that we are with you.
As long as you do that stuff, we won't remain silent.
We won't remain silent.
We won't remain silent.
We'll work harder to mobilize our votes
and our communities. But
We need you.
And we expect you to have our backs.
To protect our civil liberties and to use your congressional powers
To obstruct.
To obstruct.
Obstruct, defeat,
Anything.
Anything.
anything that violates our core values as diverse Americans.
Signed. The majority.
The majority.
The majority.
The majority.
The majority.
The majority
of the American people.